Go ahead, Rocket Ship Arnold. Say something famous to the whole wide world.
Okay. One small step for Arnold is the best I can do for mankind.
It takes years to build a fortune, but only seconds to destroy it. We have uncovered the shocking financial collapses of the biggest names in television history. Some made bad investments, but others were taken down by sudden scandals that stopped the checks overnight. You need to see exactly how much the Fresh Prince lost after one mistake. 1. Gary Coleman on Different Strokes.
Good boy. How's that eye feel?
Like it ain't got a friend in the world.
You remember the catchphrase that took over the world in the 80s? Gary Coleman was the face of Different Strokes, playing the adorable Arnold Jackson. At the peak of his fame, he was the highest-paid child actor on the planet. He was pulling in a massive $100,000 for every single episode. When you do the math, that is a fortune for a kid. He had video games, merchandise, and cartoons all based on his face. Everyone assumed he was set for life. But not all things are what they seem. While Gary was working long hours on set, his money was being handled by his parents and his business advisors. The thing nobody tells you is that child labor laws back then were not as strict as they are today. By the time Gary became an adult and tried to access his fortune, he found a shocking surprise. The trust fund that was supposed to have nearly $18 million in it was almost empty. He had to sue his own parents and his former manager just to see where the money went. It was a heartbreaking situation. In the end, the court awarded him over $1 million, but lawyers took a huge chunk of that. The sad reality is that Gary ended up filing for bankruptcy. He went from being the biggest star on TV to working as a security guard just to pay the bills. It is a cautionary tale about who you trust with your gold. Sadly, Gary passed away in 2010 with very little left of the empire he built. While Gary lost his money because of the people around him, our next star lost his fortune all by himself, mostly because he bought things that no human being actually needs. 2. Nicolas Cage.
Well, I think you better pull the trigger, because I don't give a fuck.
Now you might be thinking that Nicolas Cage is a movie star, but he has had his fair share of television moments, including a famous appearance on Saturday Night Live and huge syndication checks. He was one of the highest-paid actors in the world, earning $40 million in a single year. He amassed a fortune of over $150 million. That is enough money to buy a small island and retire forever. But Nicolas Cage did not want a small island. He wanted everything. He went on a spending spree that is legendary in Hollywood. He bought 15 different homes, including 2 castles in Europe. He bought a fleet of luxury yachts and a private jet. But the wildest purchase was a dinosaur skull that he bought at an auction for nearly $300,000, beating out Leonardo DiCaprio for the prize. You see, spending that kind of cash requires a lot of upkeep. The thing nobody tells you is that castles are expensive to maintain. Suddenly, the tax man came knocking. The IRS hit him with a bill for over $6 million in unpaid taxes. He had to start selling off his assets at a fraction of the price just to stay afloat. He sued his business manager, claiming he was led down a bad path, but the damage was done. He went from hundreds of millions to taking any role he could get just to pay off his debts. Spending money on dinosaur bones is wild, but our next actor lost his fortune because he made one of the worst career decisions in the history of television. 3. McLean Stevenson on MASH.
Klinger, the rifle makes me nervous. Actually, the purse does too. Just sit down, take a load off your heels.
In the early 70s, there was no show bigger than MASH. It was a juggernaut that millions of people watched every week. McLean Stevenson played Lieutenant Colonel Henry Blake. He was the funny, slightly incompetent leader of the medical unit, and audiences absolutely loved him. He was earning a great salary and was a household name. He even won a Golden Globe for the role. However, McLean Stevenson wanted more. He grew tired of being part of a large ensemble cast. He wanted to be the #1 star. So, in a move that shocked everyone, he decided to leave the hit show after the 3rd season. His character was written out in a tragic finale that left viewers in tears. McLean thought he was heading for movie stardom and his own hit show. What many overlooked is that the magic was in the show MASH itself, not just the actor. McLean starred in a series of sitcoms like The McLean Stevenson Show and Hello, Larry. Every single one of them was a flop. They were canceled quickly, and the big paychecks stopped coming. To make matters worse, because he left MASH early, he missed out on the massive residuals that the other cast members enjoyed for decades. He went from the top of the world to struggling for relevance. Leaving a hit show is a risky gamble, but staying on a show and destroying your reputation with one night of anger is even worse, as our next comedian found out the hard way. 4. Michael Richards on Seinfeld.
Yeah, Elaine, she has to leave her armoire on the street all night. I'm gonna guard it for her. I need something to sit on.
Kramer was the character everyone imitated. On Seinfeld, Michael Richards was a physical comedy genius. He slid through doors and fell over furniture, earning 3 Emmy Awards for his work. When Seinfeld ended, the cast was given the kind of money that usually lasts for generations. Michael Richards was sitting on a net worth of around $45 million. He had the world at his feet and could have toured as a stand-up comedian forever. But then came a night at the Laugh Factory in 2006. While performing a stand-up set, some hecklers in the audience started making noise. Instead of handling it with a joke, Michael Richards lost his cool completely. He went on a furious rant full of hateful words that we cannot repeat here. Someone in the audience was filming with a cell phone camera. The video went viral before viral was even a big thing. The backlash was instant and severe. His reputation was destroyed overnight. He tried to apologize on talk shows, but the public was not ready to forgive. He lost endorsement deals and his stand-up career vanished. A sitcom he was working on called The Michael Richards Show had already flopped, and now nobody wanted to hire him. He spent years in isolation, watching his opportunities dry up because of that one angry moment. Anger can ruin a career, but sometimes a scandal involving your private behavior can wipe out your bank account even faster, which is exactly what happened to this next comedy giant. 5. Louis C.K.
Look, you kind of show me, so just go ahead and do it.
How dare you?
Louis C.K. was hailed as the king of modern comedy. He had a hit show on FX simply called Louis, which he wrote, directed, and starred in. He was selling out massive arenas like Madison Square Garden. He had deals with Netflix and HBO that were worth tens of millions of dollars. He was even producing movies. He was at the absolute top of the entertainment mountain, with a net worth estimated at $35 million. Then, in 2017, the news broke. Several women came forward with serious allegations about his behavior in private rooms. They claimed he had acted inappropriately and made them watch him do things they did not want to see. The thing nobody tells you is that in the modern era, accountability comes fast. Within 24 hours, his world collapsed. FX canceled his show. Netflix canceled his stand-up special. The release of his new movie was scrapped entirely. He later admitted that the stories were true. He estimated that the scandal cost him roughly $35 million in a single day. He lost his agency representation and his management. He had to go away for a long time. When he eventually tried to come back, he had to fund everything himself because no major studio would touch him. Losing millions due to bad behavior is a nightmare. But our next star faced a similar investigation that halted a rising career right in its tracks. 6. Frankie Shaw on Smilf.
Why are you grabbing your penis?
I'm gonna pee.
Okay, well, you gotta use the big boy potty, okay?
Why? No.
Frankie Shaw was the breakout star and creator of a show called Smilf. It was a raw and funny look at a single mom trying to make it in Boston. The show was a critical darling and was nominated for Golden Globes. Frankie Shaw was seen as the next big thing in Hollywood, a triple threat who could write, direct, and act. She was signing deals and looking at a very bright and wealthy future. But not all things are what they seem on set. Reports started to surface that the working environment on her show was chaotic and unprofessional. Then, serious allegations emerged regarding how intimate scenes were handled. Some actors claimed they were pressured into uncomfortable situations without proper protections. There were also claims of racial bias in the writers' room. Disney and ABC Studios launched an investigation into her conduct. While Frankie Shaw denied that she acted with bad intentions, the damage was undeniable. The show was canceled after just 2 seasons. The overall deal she had with the studio was suspended. Her rise to the A-list was cut short, and the steady stream of income that comes with running a hit show evaporated. She went from being the boss to being under a microscope. Workplace issues can sink a show, but sometimes a secret from your personal life can surface decades later and destroy everything you have built, just like it did for this famous TV dad. 7. Stephen Collins on Seventh Heaven.
All right, I'll get straight to the point. I found marijuana in the house. And while I never thought of myself as the type of father who'd have to drug test his kids, I'm willing to do just that if that's what it takes to find out who brought a joint into this house.
For 11 seasons, Stephen Collins played Reverend Eric Camden on Seventh Heaven. He was America's dad. He was kind, wise, and morally upright. The show was a massive hit for the WB network and ran for over 200 episodes. That meant huge syndication checks were rolling in for Collins. He was set for life and was even getting roles in big movies and other hit shows like Scandal. Then in 2014, a recording was released to the public. It was a tape from a therapy session where Stephen Collins admitted to inappropriate conduct with minors many years prior. The shock was absolute. The man who played the ultimate moral authority was confessing to terrible things. The fallout was immediate. He was fired from the movie Ted 2. He was cut from the cast of Scandal. Reruns of Seventh Heaven were pulled off the air immediately by several networks. This was a huge blow because actors rely on those rerun checks for their income. The police opened an investigation, although the events were too old for prosecution. Stephen Collins became a pariah. He had to sell his massive home in Brentwood and disappear from the public eye, his career and reputation completely shattered. It is shocking when a clean image is destroyed, but our next actor was known for playing a crazy character, and in real life, things got even crazier. 8. Randy Quaid on the Vacation Movies.
Before we left, he drank a half a quart of Pennzoil. Boy, when he lifted his leg the next morning, whoa!
Randy Quaid is famous for playing Cousin Eddie in the National Lampoon Vacation movies. While those are films, his character was so popular, he appeared in sitcom spin-offs and was a staple of comedy television, including a stint on Saturday Night Live. He was a highly respected character actor with a net worth of around $10 million. He worked constantly and was always in demand for his unique style. But then things took a bizarre turn. Randy Quaid and his wife began to claim that there was a massive conspiracy in Hollywood to steal their money and harm them. They called it the Star Whackers. They believed that a secret group was hunting actors. They started skipping out on hotel bills and squatting in guest houses they did not own. They were arrested multiple times for burglary and fraud. To put it mildly, their behavior became erratic. They fled the United States and tried to seek asylum in Canada, claiming they were refugees from the Hollywood killers. Because they were not working and were running from the law, their money drained away rapidly. Randy Quaid went from being a beloved comic actor to a fugitive claiming wild theories, with his bank account hitting zero in the process. Believing in conspiracies is one way to lose money, but sometimes a single physical action on live television can cost you millions in seconds, as The Fresh Prince discovered. 9. Will Smith.
Oh, Will.
Hey, babe, I got to tell you. Whatever it is that you serving,
You better give me a double.
Will Smith is one of the biggest stars in the history of the world. He started as the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, a sitcom that is still played in almost every country. He transitioned into a movie star who could command $20 million a film. His net worth was in the hundreds of millions. He built a brand based on being charming, fun, and safe. Then came the 2022 Oscars. We all saw it. After a joke was made about his wife, Will Smith walked onto the stage and slapped Chris Rock across the face on live global television. It was a shocking moment of violence that stunned the audience. The room went silent, and so did Will Smith's phone for a long time afterwards. The backlash was financial and swift. Netflix put a hold on a movie he was making. Sony paused development on Bad Boys 4 for a while. He resigned from the Academy. Experts estimate that the slap cost him heavily in potential earnings and brand endorsements. While he is still wealthy, the damage to his earning power was massive. He went from being the most lovable guy in Hollywood to a controversial figure in the span of 30 seconds. One slap changed a career, but for our next star, one tweet changed the entire lineup of a television network. 10. Roseanne Barr on Roseanne.
Well, sometimes it's real hard not to, But if I swore as much as I wanted to, I'd never say anything else. So.
Roseanne Barr was the queen of the 90s sitcom. Her show, Roseanne, was a ratings monster that depicted a working-class family with honesty and humor. In 2018, the show was rebooted, and it was a massive success all over again. The ratings were through the roof. Roseanne was back on top, earning millions of dollars and proving she was still a comedy heavyweight. Then she opened Twitter. She posted a tweet that contained a racially offensive comment about a former government official. The reaction was instant. The president of ABC Entertainment made a statement calling the tweet abhorrent. Within hours, the #1 show on television was canceled. It was unprecedented. Roseanne tried to say she was under the influence of sleep medication, but it did not matter. She was fired from her own show. The network decided to continue the series without her, renaming it The Conners. They killed off her character. Roseanne lost the salary, the residuals, and the back-end profits she would have made from the hit show. She went from the top of the ratings to being unemployed and facing lawsuits in the blink of an eye. Social media can be a dangerous weapon, but sometimes the trouble comes from a life of bad choices after the cameras stop rolling, like it did for this Saved by the Bell star. 11. Dustin Diamond on Saved by the Bell.
Whatever you're doing, don't. My darling, be my partner. This could be you.
Dustin Diamond played Samuel Screech Powers. He was the nerdy, lovable sidekick on Saved by the Bell. He was on the show for over 10 years, appearing in every spin-off. You would think that being on such a popular show would set you up for life. But Dustin Diamond was typecast. Nobody wanted to hire him for anything other than playing a nerd. Frustrated and needing money, he made some desperate moves. He released a scandalous private video that he later admitted he was not even really in, just to make a quick buck. He wrote a book called Behind the Bell that trashed his former castmates, painting them in a terrible light. This made him an outcast in the industry. He was not invited to reunions and was left out of the reboot. His legal troubles piled up too. He was arrested for possession of a switchblade and was involved in a bar fight where someone was injured. He served time in jail. His finances were in ruin. He faced foreclosure on his home multiple times. Sadly, Dustin passed away in 2021 from cancer. He spent his final years struggling to find his place and his fortune, a far cry from the happy halls of Bayside High. Struggling to find work is hard, but our next actor voluntarily walked away from the biggest paycheck of his life because of his new beliefs. 12. Kirk Cameron on Growing Pains.
He checks the signals, takes a deep breath, reaches for the rosin bag, spits.
Will you just pitch the stupid ball?
I just did stay right 3, 2 out.
In the 80s, Kirk Cameron was the teenage heartthrob. His face was on every teen magazine cover. He played Mike Seaver on Growing Pains, a charming troublemaker. The show was a massive hit, and Kirk was the breakout star. He was earning a huge salary and was on track to become a major movie star. But during the height of the show, Kirk Cameron found a new path. He became a born-again Christian. His new faith was very strict, and he began to have problems with the scripts on the show. He demanded that storylines be changed if he felt they were too racy or immoral. He alienated the creators and his fellow cast members. When the show ended, Kirk decided to turn his back on mainstream Hollywood. He refused roles that did not align with his beliefs. Instead of taking the big paychecks for blockbusters, he started making low-budget faith-based films. While he is happy with his choice, his earning potential dropped significantly compared to what it could have been. He went from being an A-list celebrity to a niche figure, leaving millions of dollars on the table to follow his conscience. Leaving money behind for faith is a choice, but sometimes the role you play is so iconic that it curses your bank account forever, just like it did for George Costanza. 13. Jason Alexander on Seinfeld.
Is that so? Or could it be that you're just a little bit worried that you may have missed the boat?
Jason Alexander played George Costanza on Seinfeld. He created one of the greatest neurotic characters in history. He was brilliant, but the thing nobody tells you is that being that good can be a trap. When Seinfeld ended, Jason Alexander was extremely wealthy, but he wanted to keep working as an actor. He wanted to play different roles. However, every time audiences saw him, they just saw George. He tried to launch new sitcoms. He starred in a show called Bob Patterson. It was canceled after 5 episodes. He tried another show called Listen Up. It lasted 1 season. The ghost of George Costanza haunted his career. Producers were afraid to cast him in dramatic roles because they thought people would laugh. While he still had his Seinfeld money, his ability to generate new income as a leading man was severely damaged. He had to pivot to voice acting and theater work, which pays far less than primetime television. He refers to it as a champagne problem, but the sudden halt in his leading man career shows how a famous face can sometimes be a financial burden. The Seinfeld curse hit almost everyone, including the leading lady, until she finally broke it. 14. Julia Louis-Dreyfus.
I've yada-yada'd sex.
Really?
Yeah. I met this lawyer, we went out to dinner, I had the lobster bisque, we went back to my place, yada, yada, yada. I never heard from him again.
Julia Louis-Dreyfus played Elaine Beans. She was funny, smart, and iconic. Like her co-stars, she struggled immediately after Seinfeld ended. She starred in a show called Watching Ellie. It was a flop and was canceled quickly. People started whispering about the Seinfeld curse, saying that none of the actors would ever find success again. For a while, it looked like the money train had stopped. Her earning power dipped as her new projects failed to find an audience. But Julia had a secret weapon. She was incredibly talented and persistent. Unlike the others, she managed to break the curse. She landed a show called The New Adventures of Old Christine, which did well. But her real return to the big money came with Veep. She won Emmy after Emmy for her role as Selena Meyer. She proved that you can go broke in terms of relevance for a few years and then bounce back harder than ever. She is the exception to the rule, proving that talent can eventually outlast a curse. While Julia fought her way back, our next actress had to fight the very people who made her famous just to get what she was owed. 15. Marion Ross on Happy Days.
This is a day to count your blessings. Everyone has something to be thankful for. I have 4 big reasons.
Happy Days was the definition of 50s nostalgia. Marion Ross played Mrs. Cunningham, the sweet mother of the family. The show made a fortune in merchandise. There were lunchboxes, board games, and T-shirts with the characters' faces on them. The actors were told they would not see much money from that merchandise. Decades later, Marion Ross and several other cast members found out that the studio, CBS, owed them a lot of money. The studio had been selling merchandise with their faces on it for years and not paying them their fair share. Marion Ross, who was in her 80s by then, had to file a lawsuit against the massive corporation. It was a risky move. Lawsuits are expensive and stressful. She claimed breach of contract. Eventually, they settled and the cast was awarded money. But it was a long battle to get what was rightfully hers. It shows that even the sweet mom from TV has to fight to keep from being taken advantage of by the big business of Hollywood. Fighting for money is stressful, but sometimes tragedy strikes and wipes out a fortune due to health, which is the sad story of a comedy king. 16. Bernie Mac.
Go for the juggler. If their mama's fat, you got to say something like, your mama's so fat I poured half a cup of water in the bathtub, and when she sat down, it overflowed.
Bernie Mac was a force of nature. He was one of the kings of comedy. His sitcom, The Bernie Mac Show, was a huge hit on Fox. He played a version of himself raising his sister's kids. He was earning millions per season and was in blockbuster movies like Ocean's 11. His net worth was estimated to be around $15 million. But Bernie Mac was silently fighting a battle with his health. He suffered from a condition called sarcoidosis, which affects the lungs. In 2008, he was hospitalized with pneumonia. Tragically, he passed away at the young age of 50. The thing nobody tells you is that complex estates can be messy. After his death, much of his fortune was tied up in debts and ongoing medical costs that had accumulated. His widow had to manage the estate carefully. While he left a legacy of laughter, the financial security he built was heavily impacted by his sudden illness and passing. It is a reminder that health is the one asset you cannot buy. Sudden health issues are terrifying, and they also struck a classic sitcom, Dad right in the middle of a comeback. 17. John Ritter on Three's Company.
And you know, I should have laid right into him.
Well, you still can.
You won't mind?
No, I'd enjoy it.
You would?
Yeah.
Let's go.
Okay.
John Ritter was the master of physical comedy on Three's Company. He fell over sofas and tripped over rugs for 8 seasons, becoming a wealthy man. After years of smaller roles, he made a massive comeback with the show 8 Simple Rules for Dating My Teenage Daughter. The show was a hit, and John Ritter was back on top, earning big checks again. Then tragedy struck on set. During a rehearsal, John Ritter started feeling ill. He was rushed to the hospital. Doctors initially thought it was a heart attack, but it was actually an aortic dissection, a tear in his heart. He passed away that same day. The show tried to continue without him, but it was eventually canceled. His family later filed a wrongful death lawsuit against the doctors, claiming they misdiagnosed him. While the family eventually received settlements, the loss of John Ritter meant the loss of a primary earner and a beloved father. The sudden end of his life and his show was a shockwave that left his family dealing with legal battles instead of just enjoying his success. Medical issues are a common theme in financial loss, And for our next icon, the cost of care was devastating. 18. Valerie Harper on Rhoda.
Sounds great. How much?
$900 a month plus $150 cleaning fee.
I can only afford to move into the cleaning fee.
Valerie Harper was Mary Tyler Moore's best friend on screen, and then the star of her own hit, Rhoda. She was one of the most recognizable faces of the 70s. She won 4 Emmy Awards. She worked consistently in theater and television for decades. She had a comfortable life and a solid nest egg. However, in 2009, she was diagnosed with lung cancer. She fought it and continued to work. But in 20, she was diagnosed with a rare condition where cancer cells spread into the lining of the brain. The medical costs were astronomical. Even with insurance, the price of staying alive in the American medical system can drain a lifetime of savings. Valerie Harper continued to take roles, even competing on Dancing with the Stars while she was sick, partly to cover her expenses. She faced lawsuits and financial stress in her final years. She passed away in 2019, having spent much of her fortune on the fight for her life. It is a harsh reality that even fame cannot protect you from the high cost of health care. Physical illness is brutal, but mental struggles can also lead to a tragic loss of potential and wealth, as seen with this Growing Pains actor. 19. Andrew Koenig on Growing Pain.
Mike, your folks ain't home. This is like the chance of a lifetime and you want to watch TV?
You might remember Andrew Koenig as Boner, the friend of Mike Seaver on Growing Pains. He was a funny, recurring character who was a fan favorite. Andrew came from a famous family. His father was Walter Koenig, who played Chekhov on Star Trek. Andrew had a bright future and plenty of connections in the industry, but Andrew battled with deep internal struggles. He fought against depression for much of his life. After leaving Growing Pains, he did not find the same level of success. He worked in smaller roles and behind the scenes, but the big money of a sitcom star eluded him. He gave away many of his possessions and seemed to be detaching from the material world. In 2010, he went missing in Vancouver. His friends and family launched a desperate search. Tragically, he was found to have passed away by his own hand in a park. It was a devastating end to a life that had so much promise. His story is a somber reminder that money and fame do not cure inner pain, and the loss of his life was a loss of decades of potential creativity. Our final story is not about an actor, but a producer who shaped daytime television, only to lose it all in the end. 20. Gloria Monty on General Hospital.
Well, it varies day by day. You get in the morning, you usually see actors, speak to the writers.
Gloria Monty was a legend. She was the executive producer who saved General Hospital from cancellation and turned it into a global phenomenon. She created the super couple, Luke and Laura. While soap operas are not sitcoms, the way she ran the show was similar to the big comedy productions. She was paid a fortune and was considered royalty at ABC. She lived a lavish lifestyle, enjoying the fruits of her incredible success. But after she left the show, things went downhill. She tried to return years later to save the show again, but her magic touch seemed to be gone. The ratings did not recover, and she was let go. In her final years, it was reported that her finances were in disarray. She had spent heavily and did not have the steady income she once commanded. When she passed away in 2002, she left behind a complicated legacy. She had revolutionized television, but she died with very little of the wealth she had generated for the network. It is a final lesson that in Hollywood, you are only as good as your last hit.